Okay, so we're doing dueling. And it's Connor's, Michael, and I. Okay. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so the formal concept of a duel developed out of the medieval judicial duel and older pre-Christian practices. And they went on to resolve disputes and such. And judicial duels were denounced by the Lateran Council of 1215 as the Catholic Church deemed that they were unethical and immoral. However, they still took place behind the scenes. The holm gang was one of the first types of duels. It was developed in the Viking Age, and it was practiced by early medieval Scandinavians, and it was a recognized way to settle disputes. And it was an example of the first somewhat organized form of dueling. Holm gang means to go on or walk on a smile island, or simply island walk. And anyone offended could challenge the other party to a holm gang. And they were fought 3 to 7 days after the challenge. And if the offended party did not turn up in the holm gang, they are deemed Nightingale. And this term means in the shadows. And basically what it means is they were stripped of all honor, and the opponent would win the duel. And this is just a picture of a holm gang. And it was, since it was with the Vikings and stuff, it wasn't really too organized. It was just barbaric, kind of fight till the death. Okay, and Hans Talhofer was a civil court judge who decided that despite the Lateran Council, that there were still 7 crimes, or somewhere around 7, that warranted a duel. So in that way, dueling still went on. And in terms of the way society viewed duels, most of them did not condemn dueling, actually, besides the Catholic Church. And the victor of the duel was regarded as not a murderer, but as a hero. And his social status increased, and he was viewed as one with honor, and the loser was stripped of almost all.
Or killed. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, in the Renaissance, dueling spiked, I guess. It established the status of a respectable gentleman, and it was an accepted manner to resolve disputes. And the first published Code Duello, or Code of Dueling, appeared in Renaissance Italy. And Connor will touch on this later, but the main point of this was to regulate dueling and thus help prevent feuds between families and other social factions. And it was a way to organize duels to make it a bit less barbaric and more organized and somewhat more civil.
Oh, dang.
That's
That was
crazy.
so cool.
Thanks. Okay, so what do you guys think the main reason for a challenge to the duel was from this discussion?
Pride. Their pride getting offended.
It was honor. So it's the same thing, just
Nailed it.
yeah. So do you agree with the concept of the duel? Why or why not?
Yes, I think we should still participate in dueling, because when my honor is challenged, there's nothing I'd like to do more than duel. Yes.
I agree.
Yes. Do the duel, yeah. No,
Okay.
not really.
So after going through this, do you think Brzezinski was just in challenging Pecorin for a duel? Based on like the feud or whatever they have?
I feel like during that time he was just, but like thinking about it now, I think well, first of all, it's against the law, but also it's just stupid, I think, to fight over something like
Yeah, because
that.
I feel like what they thought
Just get
about
over
was
yourself. Stupid ego. You shouldn't die over your ego. I don't know.
But that was the
During that
time.
time, during
But
that
was
time,
a
he was
very,
just.
very, yeah, it was very cultural.
Yeah. During that time, it
I
was
also
like,
feel
it was
like
fine.
Pecorin was, in a sense, like humiliating Brzezinski in front of everyone, so he like, in order to attempt to salvage his honor, I feel like he had no other choice but to challenge to.
I have an instructive guide on how to duel, in case you want to do it on your spare free time. First, you have to know what you're doing. We'll go through these 10 terms really fast. I got like more than 20 sides, so we'll have to go really fast. First, the field of honor is the land on which 2 parties hold the duel. It's the place where the seconds choose to hold the duel. Generally, the most important criteria is secrecy. It's led to like creative fields of honor if you read through like various accounts, like the Burr-Hamilton duel, which we'll go into later. But just like in the book, they use the most like outward like what's it called Mountain Cliff, at the very dawn. I think it was good. Yeah, okay. Secrecy was essential in establishing any good dueling field of honor because it was illegal in most parts of the world at that time. After all, it is deadly. Commonly, cliffs and islands were used to hide duels from onlookers. Dawn was the typical time of day in which they would be held so that onlookers could not say, oh, hey, you're not doing good things. And also just like disguise the shooters themselves. Term number 2, the fence is the thing which provokes the duel. In Grushnitsy's case would be like Chorin offending him. Whether real or imagined, party A is insulted in some way and demands a satisfaction, which I'll get into later. Party A could signal its demand to party B with an, quote, inescapably insulting gesture, such as throwing a glove down. This is the origin of the phrase throwing down the gauntlet. The offense would be dealt with, else honor would be lost. Usually that would come from the offending party if they don't take up the duel. Third is satisfaction. It's basically the end to a conflict that satisfies party A in some way. This can either be through death, galloping, which I'll get into later, injury, or apology. Somehow the challenger must be satisfied that justice is done and honor is remained intact. It's very clever. The principal is the man who is shooting or fighting in some way on either side. So each side, both the offender and the challenger, has a principal. That gets later into the second. The offender and challenger choose one or more men to act as his second, which the doctor was in Chorin's case. Principals fight the duel to the finish, whatever that may entail. We'll get into the terms later. They're basically the ones dueling. The second is probably the most important part of the duel. Do you have your slides, or is that? Okay. The second is picked by each side's principal for management purposes. Basically, he runs the entire duel. The seconds are, there could be more than one, but the second is a trusted representative who negotiates the terms, conditions, and field of honor. They're in charge of loading the pistols or making sure that they're loaded fairly in the case of a pistol duel. If not, they would be the ones who choose the fair weapons for each side. The second would act as the primary witness as well. In some customs, if the primary was unable to continue, the second had to continue the fight until the terms were met. That usually happened under sword duels when it was like to the death, but someone was hacked down and can't continue fighting. The second would continue fighting for the principal. Deloping is when one or both parties would intentionally miss the other in order to fulfill the conditions of the duel without loss of either life or honor. This is like, let's say the terms were 2 shots each side, and then like they're actually friends, and they're like, all right, this is just an honor thing, so they shoot into the ground. But what was interesting about I'll get into that later. This commonly occurred when friends got into a heated argument and the duel was challenged. However, this was banned by the Coduello in Rule 13, which stated, no dump shooting or firing in the air is admissible in any case. Children's play must be dishonorable on one side or the other and is accordingly prohibited. So it's prohibited not because it's dangerous or like stupid, it's just dishonorable, and it's not gentlemanly. And the winner of a duel cannot win by something so childish, they said. Deloping in some cases would actually be more destructive than helpful. When pistols were more inaccurate than they were today, a shot intended to miss could actually hit them, and it'd be fatal. If the intent was to come out of the duel alive, it could often end in disaster. This is seen in A Hero of Our Time with the climactic end of Princess Mary, which some critics have said that possibly Grushnitsky was completely intending to miss him. And, I mean, if he only scraped his knee, that's probably the case. The Code Duello, which I'm elaborating on, is a set of rules for one-on-one combat or a duel. They were not one universal set of rules, but varied all around different countries, different cultures, from region to region. Code Duellos regulated dueling and thus helped prevent vendettas between families and other social factions. They assured that non-violent violent means of reaching our agreement must be exhausted before you duel, so that harm may be reduced. They assure that the proceedings have a number of witnesses who assure grieving relatives of the fairness of the duels, which just helps the aftermath, and then help provide testimony if legal authorities become involved. It's really just like a gentleman's guideline. I think that's it. Weapon is that which is used in the duel. It consisted of dueling pistols, but started out with swords before gunpowder was invented, because it was like Viking time was when it started. 9, the conditions were the terms struck by the two parties telling how the duel would conclude, as well as other rules of the duel. This is one of the second's jobs. They negotiate with the other side to come to dueling conditions, as such as first blood, physical inability to complete, a la outrance, or to the death, or one shot. First blood is when the duel would be ended as soon as one man is wounded, even if the wound was a minor. Like, if that was the case, when which one was shot, the duel would be over, but it wasn't. Another term could be until one man was so severely wounded as to be physically incapable of continuing the duel. And to the death, or a la outrance, which in this case there would be no satisfaction until one party was mortally wounded. And these are, what was I going to say? These are like the conditions that the second would pre-bargain, pre-negotiate for. And this was like very important, so like they had to finish the duel to the terms, otherwise it would be uncompleted and unhonorable. And here's how to start dueling. In the case of pistol duels, each party would fire one shot. If neither man was hit, and if the challenger stated he was satisfied, the duel would be declared over. It's more an honor thing. If the challenger was not satisfied, a pistol duel could continue until one man was wounded or killed. But to have more than 3 exchanges of fire was considered barbaric, and on rare occasion that no hits were achieved was somewhat ridiculous. It's like, it's child's play. You can't even hit them and you're mad at them, so get over yourself. Last one, the dueling code was a set of unwritten rules specifically drawn up for Russian dueling. Michael's going to elaborate on this later, but basically in the Russian region, this was founded, I forget by whom, it's a prince of some sort. Michael will say it. But one of the main rules forbade duels between people of different ranks. So lower rank could not challenge a higher rank, and higher rank could not stoop to challenge lower rank. So in that case, it was up to the subordinates and servants to take revenge on their master's behalf. Warning, before you get started in your very own duel, please take careful note. To decline a challenge is regarded as a defeat by forfeiture, and sometimes held as dishonorable. If you are a prominent and or famous individual, you're especially likely to be challenged, because people like to challenge big important people. If you're content with these terms, you may move forward. That's Harry Potter. How to duel. So if you want to duel, do you want to do a duel, you? Okay, let's get started. For a pistol duel, the parties would be placed back to back with loaded weapons in hand, kind of like the Western, and walk a certain number of paces. Turn to face the opponent and shoot. Typically, the graver the insult, the fewer the paces agreed upon. And it's big in A Hero of Our Time, because Grushnitsky, the doctor, said that Grushnitsky's second was very intent on 6 paces, very few paces. So he was like pretty darn insulted. However, if you were a more face-to-face fellow, other ways of dueling exist. Take Grushnitsky and Pechorin. They did the alternative style like many duelists prefer. At any given signal, often the dropping of a handkerchief, so like hit the ground. The principals could advance and fire at will. This wasn't what Grushnitsky and Pechorin did, but this system reduced the possibility of cheating, as neither of the shooters or the principals had to trust the other man not to turn too soon and kill him. Another system involved alternative shots being taken, which is what they did in the book, beginning with the challenged firing first. This is what we see with our friends in A Hero of Our Time. Or the challenger firing first. Dueling was common against Russian writers, poets, and politicians. Alexander Pushkin, whom Lermontov was pretty much in love with, fought 29 duels before being killed in a duel with some French guy. Lermontov was killed